Andrade returns to AEW after being fired by WWE. Details on how long this has been planned. My review of the 6th anniversary edition of AEW Dynamite and more. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Last night was the 6th anniversary edition of AEW Dynamite and got two big matches announced for WrestleDream in Hangman Adam Page vs Samoa Joe for the AEW World Championship and Chris Statlander vs Toni Storm for the Women's Championship. Jurassic Express made their TV return to brawl with the Young Bucks and we got the debut of El Clon. I'll have my full review of the show later on in this episode and Ollie Davis and I will break it down even further in tomorrow's WrestleTalk podcast, but there was one huge bit of news from the show. On March 21st, 2021, Andrade was released from WWE after requesting his release from the company. He debuted for AEW on June 4th, 2021. On December 30th, 2023, it was announced that Andrade's contract had come to an end and he would not be re-signing with AEW. On January 24th, 2024, Andrade returned to WWE at the Royal Rumble. On September 13th, 2025, it was reported that Andrade had been fired by WWE following an altercation that saw him escorted from the building, and now, on October 1st, 2025, Andrade has returned to AEW by attacking Kenny Omega and joining the Don Callis family. According to Fightful Select, Andrade's return to AEW has been in motion for at least a couple of weeks, and he's back with the company full time. He is signed with AEW, this is not a one-off. His time with AEW, the first time that is, was marred with some controversy. He had personal issues with Sammy Guevara following an interview that Andrade did with Mas Lucha where he said that Sammy was complaining backstage that Andrade hit too hard in the ring. Guevara responded to this interview on Twitter calling Andrade a favor hire, claiming he only got brought into AEW because his father-in-law at the time was Ric Flair, and Andrade said that he'll see him at Dynamite. As the story goes, following the fight at 2022's All Out between CM Punk and The Elite, Andrade had been asked by AEW to not get into it with Sammy Guevara. Andrade said that he wouldn't, but then punched Sammy in the face as soon as he saw him. Andrade was sent home following the incident and his scheduled match with Preston Vance was cancelled. The rumor at the time was that Andrade was unhappy in AEW and was looking to get fired so he could return to WWE now that Triple H was in charge of creative. Tony Khan had accused WWE of reaching out to certain AEW stars to ask about their contract status as Triple H was bringing back a lot of names that had been released by the previous regime. He got injured and after returning from said injury, he turned face and had a run in the Continental Classic before starting a feud with Miro over the services of CJ Perry. Miro was also reportedly unhappy with his time in AEW and their match at World's End 2023 ended up being the final match for both men before they both returned to WWE. Fightful Select write that Andrade's departure from AEW was on less than ideal terms. Despite the reported attitude issues, AEW were reportedly keen on retaining Andrade, most likely just to stop him going back to WWE and that making headlines. That's my speculation. And it's claimed that AEW did not know he was going to leave the company until very late in the day. Tony Khan spoke very positively about Andrade at the World's End post-show press conference. Fightful Select reported when Andrade left WWE the second time that no bridge in AEW is truly burned. CM Punk AEW return confirmed. Andrade's return to WWE was largely forgettable. He teamed with Rey Mysterio to beat Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar at WrestleMania 40. He won the Speed Championship, who remembers that, and was in both the 2024 and 2025 Men's Money in the Bank ladder matches. He had a best of 7 series with Carmelo Hayes, then teamed with Rey Fenix where they competed for the WWE Tag Team Championships in the 6-pack TLC match at SummerSlam. It would end up being his final match with WWE because the end of his run there was also marred in controversy. WrestleMobs on Twitter were the first to notice that Andrade's profile had been moved to the alumni section of WWE.com, and it was reported that he was done with WWE and it was not part of releases or cuts. John Alber of Sports Illustrated reported that Andrade hadn't been at TV tapings for a while and his departure was not a mutual decision. The implication there was that he had been fired, which has been confirmed and reported elsewhere. Alber added in his report that Andrade had failed a wellness policy policy test. It's still unclear if he tested positive for a substance that was banned by WWE or if he simply failed to supply his sample. And that was actually his second suspension following a wellness policy failure in 2020 during his first run. Alba wrote, Andrade was told to leave a taping in August and was escorted out of the building. A high-level source asserted this dismissal from the building was in relation to his most recent suspension and that it affected major creative plans for his tag team with Rey Fenix. Those creative plans were reportedly Fenix and Andrade challenging the Wyatt Six for the tag titles at Clash in Paris, which instead went to the Street Profits. The Wrestling Observer reported that Andrade was also factored into major AAA plans. Corey Hayes of Bodyslam reported that WWE tried to reach out to Andrade for several weeks, but he was unreachable. It was reported that his firing from WWE was not related to drugs, alcohol, or his divorce from Charlotte Flair, but the incident was enough for him to be sent home. Incredibly, that was only about 3 weeks ago. Fightful Select report that Andrade did not have a non-compete after being fired by WWE. So Andrade's now officially the Jeff Jarrett of this wrestling war, right? Jarrett left WWF in January 1996 and joined WCW in October 96, then left WCW in August 97 and went back to the WWF in October 97, then left WWF on October 17th, 1999 and returned to WCW the following day on October 18th, 1999, then got fired by Vince McMahon on live TV when WWE bought WCW in 2001, and each time he left it was over contract disputes. Immediately, Andrade started running angles on Twitter targeting MJF, who called him out as part of his summer run with CMLL. There was some speculation that Andrade would sign with CMLL rather than AEW given his first run with the company, which would still allow him to appear on Dynamite and pay-per-views given the company's partnerships, which made his return to AEW all the more surprising. What do you make of the return of Andrade? Let me know in the comments down below. So let's talk about the rest of the show, Because it's Thursday, you know what that means. It's time for my review of AEW Dynamite. The 6th anniversary edition of the show kicked off with something that AEW do better than most other North American wrestling companies: the 6-man party match. The Young Bucks teamed with Josh Alexander to take on Kenny Omega and Bro Dido, and it was as brilliant and fun as you would expect. Some people get really weird in the comments when I say that the Young Bucks are really good, so get your angry little fingers at the ready to type your comments because, I'm gonna say it again, the Young Bucks are really, really good. Do you know who else is great? Kenny Omega, Josh Alexander, Brody King, and Bandido. So yeah, this was just excellent and exactly what you'd want from the opening contest of the 6th anniversary show. It's mad to me that Kenny Omega keeps talking about how he hasn't got a lot of matches left in him, but you can't tell that by watching him wrestle. But that's not all. The Young Bucks have spent all their money and are now the broke Bucks. And that played into the post-match angle, because Kenny Omega got the win by pinning Josh Alexander, and it looked like he was going to try and appeal to the Young Bucks. The three of them built this company with Cody Rhodes and Tony Khan after all. But Josh Alexander blasted Kenny from behind. The Bucks didn't really know what to do, but before they could choose their side, Jurassic Express came down to brawl with Matt and Nick. But like Muldoon talking about the Raptors not attacking the same part of the electrified fence in Steven Spielberg's best movie ever, Jurassic Park, he remembered. Yes, Kenny remembered that the last time he was in the ring with Jungle Boy, Jack Perry attacked him right in the diverticulitis. So he got right in his face before Jurassic Express brawled with the Bucks to the back. Kenny thanked the fans, and that's when Andrade made his return to AEW and aligned himself with Don Callis. Mark Briscoe cut a promo putting over Orange Cassidy and the injured hologram, which led into Orange Cassidy challenging Kyle Fletcher for the TNT Championship. This was an awesome match, and it looked like OC might actually have it won, especially when Hologram made his surprise return to stop Don Callis interfering, but then he tripped OC, leading to Fletcher hitting the corner brainbuster for the win. Hang on just a gosh darn minute, that's not Hologram. Why, it's some sort of clone. Begun, the Clone Wars have. He joined the family, and Callis then posed on the ramp with his massive faction. Mercedes Moné announced that she would defend the TBS Championship against someone who lives in Florida next week, Dakota Kai, or maybe even Izzy, perhaps, and Harley Cameron pitched that they should team together for the tag team titles. She also suggested to Chris Statlander that they team as well. Hangman Page teamed with the Ops to beat the Death Riders in another great match, but the best stuff came in the post-match angle. Hangman Page handed Joe his trios title back, but with adrenaline coursing through him, he may have done it just a little bit too rough, and also when Joe wasn't ready, so Joe just dropped the title. And Joe saw this as a moment of disrespect, and he got in Page's face. Joe told Page that he's never beaten him, and security stopped them getting into a brawl. Page then challenged Joe to a match at WrestleDream, which Joe later accepted. This was so awesome and so rad, and I'm so pumped for everything about it. Tony Storm beat Ty Mello, then challenged Chris Statlander for the title at WrestleDream, which Stat later accepted, and Sammy Guevara and Eddie Kingston cut promos on each other ahead of Kingston facing Dralistico on Collision. GOA beat the Swirl in a fine little tag match, and the Hurt Syndicate returned following their loss at All Out, where they challenged the Demand to a street fight next week, which Ricochet then accepted. Don Callis challenged Bro Dido to the tag titles against Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada, again furthering the story that Don is not really seeing the issues between his guys, and the main event saw Darby Allin and Chris Statlander beat Marina Shafir and Wheeler Yuta in a fun hardcore match that had chairs, tacks, and tables. Yuta teased putting Statlander into the tanks, but she reversed and dumped him into a pile of chairs and instead dropped Marina Shafir bare feet first into the thumbtacks. Ooh, gross. They then blinded Shafir and she started choking out Yuta, thinking it was Darby Allin. I would have thought his gross smelly beard would have given that away, and Stat hit the 450 and Allin hit the coffin drop to get the win. Storm and Stat brawled afterwards, and Moxley and the Death Riders laid out Darby Allin. This was a great episode of AEW Dynamite. Newsworthy for sure, but I'm not completely sold on the idea of Andrade coming back. That said, the action was awesome. We got some great promos, and we have got some superb matches announced for the next pay-per-view and next week's TV as well. This was greater than last week's Dynamite. I was on Fightful yesterday chatting with Sean Ross Sapp, answering your questions, so go give that a watch and tell them that I sent you. The video's on screen right now. Jam that jam.